Years after a young mission was started in Platte County, it had grown to a thriving church. But more than that, Christ Lutheran proved to be home to more than 800 members and a beacon ministering to the emerging growth area of Kansas City. And it was that vision of growth that, 30 years before, had beckoned a group of young Lutherans.
You see, those of us who really were in this first group, virtually all of us belonged to Holy Cross, which is now in Englewood Road, and we were even in Holy Cross when Holy Cross didn't have a church yet, when they were meeting in North Kansas City High School. So this was very simply the recognition that this area, Platte County specifically, would grow. We have talked about growing Platte County since the middle 50s.
Jersey Hauptman remembers the dean of the Graduate School of Park College is a true historian. Others remember those early days too, and they remember how far they had to travel to worship in the days before the interstates.
We were rather removed from Holy Cross. It's a pretty long haul over there, 5 or 6 miles, and they didn't have the freeway system then. The back roads were terrible, but we took the back roads. And no, it seemed to be time. And actually, one of the members from Holy Cross, who was a member of LMA, was instrumental in getting this started, because the Lutheran Mission League, the Lutheran Mission Association knew that there was a need for a church in Platte County.
That need led to a hurried meeting in Herb and Esther Kettleson's living room.
Well, I guess my place was the most convenient, or something or other. And we volunteered it, so the people decided we'd meet there. Of course, we had no other place to meet, except in people's homes at that time.
Herb must have told them, right after Sunday service, that, well, we'll meet in our living room. So I had to rush home and pick things up, you know, how you do on Sunday morning. You go to church and don't take care of everything at home. And I remember Rebecca coming over real early, and she helped me dust and get things sort of in order. And we had our meeting.
Bain Tatman was at that first meeting. So was his wife, Jeanette.
Holy Cross was growing so fast, and they felt like that this was an area that we could do a lot of mission work over in here, because at that time there was really only one church, which was a community church down at Parkville. These other ones were starting, but they really weren't. When we moved to this area, the only church was the Parkville Community Presbyterian Church.
We were a small handful. I don't remember exactly how many there were originally, but it was a very small handful of people, and we needed help. So our main problem was going out and making calls and inviting people to join.
Those young missionaries went out and recruited believers for a new church that would meet in a funeral home, the Francis Funeral Home in Parkville, to be exact. And among the first recruits, Evelyn and Don States.
The earliest memories I have of this church is that we moved to Parkville, and down the street was a Francis Funeral Home where was church until we bought our property and built. And Don was not a Lutheran at that time, but he was in a confirmation class with another gentleman, Ray Bosworth.
About the first thing I can really remember about the church was a confirmation. And I think I was probably in one of the first confirmation classes. I was a convert from another religion. We all met down here at the funeral home down here. This is when I joined the church, when we was at the funeral home, in Francis Funeral Home in Parkville. Mm-hmm. So we just walked. I live in Parkville, so I just walked down there, and we walked to church then. We didn't have to drive.
But meeting in a funeral home was not without its problems.
Since I was a teenager, I think the earliest memories were going to church at the funeral home and Parkville, trying to find a place to park on that narrow street, having some Sunday school classes where I was teaching some of them with in among the caskets with the little children, and remembering that we had to tell them continually to keep their hands off the brass work, etc.
The other thing that I remember well was during the service, the aromas from Mrs. Francis's roast beef would drift down the stairs because they had their home up above, and it made it very difficult for me to keep my mind on the service at that point.
Oh, it was very slow. Let's put it this way, very slow. Especially that the Francis funeral home was really not the most attractive really place to meet.
The funeral home was not the place for a growing church. So it was in 1958 that the 4.5-acre lot at Highway 9 and 72nd Street was purchased.
This acreage was for sale. The widow who owned it was anxious to get rid of it, and Sam Rasmussen, who was a charter member, found out about this acreage being for sale. This site consists of 4 acres, and it had an old building. Well, I can't say old. It was built about in World War II on the site, and we used that as a parsonage for 20 years before we bulldozed it into a hole. And it was a good buy. We paid $30,000 for it. Some of the members thought that was a pretty steep price at the time, but I thought it was a bargain. And it was. It turned out to be a pretty good bargain.
Before the building was ever built, we laid out a plan of the building, the original building. We had artificial lights. We had portable organ. We had a portable altar. And we had a service here, and I'm the guy that actually conducted the church service to raise funds.
Now, on that property was a beautiful home that would become the parsonage. But beauty was only skin deep. Inside, wiring was inadequate. Plumbing always had problems. The laundry room was unheated, and winter winds cut through paper-thin walls. So the old building was bulldozed in 1982 to make room for a new parsonage. Building the worship center came in stages. The first phase housed a sanctuary upstairs and one large Sunday school room downstairs. The second phase, an extension of the original building, provided still more classrooms. Then, in 1979, an ambitious building program provided more classrooms, an administrative area, and an expansive new sanctuary. Remarkably, only 3 pastors served the church during its first 30 years. Pastor Philip Gaylor came to help organize the new church. He stayed until 1963. Pastor Gustav Sittman served the church from 63 to 1970. And Pastor Robert Kruger came to the church in 1970. Over the years, outreach ministries became very important. The church developed a special relationship with an inner-city mission. And with children closer to home with a highly regarded pre-kindergarten. Christ Church became a place of meetings and marriages, baptisms and confirmations.
My husband and I were in Sunday school class together, and Dr. Hopman was our teacher, and the story was on keeping friendship intact and loving other people and so forth. And so afterwards, my husband sent me a card he was in college. We weren't really going together or anything. He sent me a card, always follow the straight and narrow path and you'll never meet another living soul. And on the end of the card, he asked me out for a date. So maybe that's how it all started with us. I don't know.
My daughter was confirmed here. Then she was married here. We've been blessed by the fact that both of our grandchildren have been baptized here, and one confirmed, and God willing, the second one will be confirmed in this same church.
Most of all, Christ Lutheran is a body of believers, true to the Word and the sacraments. A body of believers where Christ is centermost. And that is exactly why the name was chosen.
There were a number of different names were mentioned, and then ultimately the point was to identify what is really the focal point of a church. And this became very obvious. Once we started to talk about the focal point, the center point, it was obvious that it has to be Christ.
Christ Lutheran Church. The name says it all. Christ, the name without which neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Lutheran, so named not because we worship Martin Luther, but because we, with Luther, seek to follow Christ. And church, not just a building for religious purposes, rather a place in which a redeemed people of God can come together.
Depart.